Look, I'm going to ask you to do something impossible. I want you to look at your laptop, find a file that is completely random. This could be an image, video, audio, or a PDF file, and simply tell me if it's legit. Well, you can't, right? Because in our world, developers, engineers, and architects, we have been trained to trust our eyes. We scan for syntax errors, we look for suspicious logic, we watch for red flags. But what happens when the red flag is literally made of nothing? Today we are talking about a ghost story. It is a story about how trust is being weaponized in the very places we feel safest, and how the cleverest hackers in the world have figured out a way to hide a monster in a house made of glass. I am Rushin and you're listening to the Tech Files. Let me tell you a story about a developer named Alex. On a typical Tuesday morning, Alex is working on a new project. He is building an interface for an app. To speed things up, Alex visits the Microsoft Visual Studio Marketplace. This is hallowed ground. This is not some dark corner of the internet. This is the official tool library of Microsoft. Alex finds an extension that promises to make his workflow easier. It has got a professional looking icon, a name that sounds right, and it is sitting right there on the shelf next to the most trusted tools in the industry. Alex clicks install, and in that 1 second, the ghost enters his machine. Since October 2025, a campaign has been running through these halls. 24 different malicious extensions, all of them wearing the masks of tools we love. React, Tailwind, Vim, Vue. They were not trying to break in through the back door. They walked right through the front, and many developers held the door open for them, including Alex. This is a deadly computer worm. A computer worm is a type of standalone malware that self-replicates and spreads across networks without human interaction, exploiting security vulnerabilities to infect other computers. The threat we are looking at today is famously known as the GlassWorm. And here's the thing. Once it enters your laptop, it does not announce itself. It does not scream. It does not lock your files or demand a ransom. It just sits there, watching. It is looking for your keys, your GitHub credentials, your NPM tokens, your session cookies. It is looking for your cryptocurrency wallets. But here's the most terrifying part of the GlassWorm's biology. It is a true self-propagator. Unlike computer viruses, they do not need to attach to a host program or file to activate. Once it has your keys, it uses your identity. It logs into your accounts and begins to poison your projects. Suddenly, you are not just a victim anymore, you are the carrier. You are the person unknowingly handling the infection to your teammates, your friends, and your customers. Your reputation becomes the camouflage for the worm. But how does it stay hidden? How does it bypass the thousands of eyes that look at these repositories every single day? This is where the story gets weird. Researchers at Koi Security were the ones who really started digging into this. They opened up one of these malicious files expecting to see a mess of scrambled encrypted code. Instead, they saw nothing. Just a massive gaping hole of white space between two lines of logic. They thought their monitors were glitching. They thought the file was corrupted, but then they did something simple. They clicked and dragged their mouse across that empty space, and the screen lit up. Thousands of invisible characters were highlighted. They were there the whole time, tucked into the gaps of the file. It is a technique called white space steganography. The hackers are not using complex math to hide their code. They are using the ghost characters of the Unicode space. Characters that have no width, no ink, and no visual presence. To a human eye, it is a blank line. To a computer, it is a death warrant. Your email service uses filters to automatically block or flag malicious messages. For example, these filters are trained to look for red flag phrases like "your password has expired." To bypass this, hackers insert an invisible character between every single letter. To the computer, the phrase becomes unrecognizable, but to you, it looks exactly the same. But when that email lands in your inbox, your email client renders it perfectly. You see the warning. You click the link to update your password for a specific account. The next thing you know is you have lost everything. This goes beyond the code. It is about a fundamental exploit of how humans and machines see the world differently. The deeper you go, the more you realize how much empty space there is in our online platforms for hackers to hide in. There is a section of the Unicode library called the private use area, and these are blocks of characters that are not assigned to any language or any symbol. They are reserved. Because they are not official, most systems do not know how to draw them, so they draw nothing. The GlassWorm uses these empty symbols to build its payload. It takes a bootstrapped script, a tiny 116-byte piece of code that looks harmless, and uses it as a decoder ring. It reads the nothingness in the file, converts it into ones and zeros, and suddenly a massive malicious program is running in your memory, and you never saw a single line of it on your screen. When the worm hit, the harm was measured in layers. First, there was the immediate financial bleed. Developers, many of whom are early adopters of new tech, watched as their Solana and Ethereum wallets were drained in seconds. The malware did not need to ask for permission. It had already harvested the private keys from their local environments. But the second layer was more insidious. Imagine being a lead maintainer for a popular open source project. You wake up to find that your GitHub account has committed malicious code to a repository used by thousands of companies. You didn't do it. Your password was not even weak. But because the GlassWorm lived in your IDE, it wrote your authenticated session like a stowaway. The harm here was the potential poisoning of the entire global software supply chain. One infected developer could have become the patient zero for a massive corporate breach. The moral of the story is, we live in an era of supply chain threats. We are all standing on the shoulders of tech giants, using their libraries, extensions, and frameworks built by people we have never met. We trust their marketplace. We trust the green or blue verified checkmark. The GlassWorm was mitigated, but it left a scar. It forced us to realize that our tools, the very things we use to build the future, are also our greatest vulnerabilities. We mitigated the attack, but the technique is now out there. It is a permanent part of the hacker's toolkit. The fix is not just a software patch. It is a shift in how we work. We now see more IDEs highlighting suspicious Unicode by default, casting a literal light on the characters that are trying to stay in the dark. The worm proved that in the digital age, seeing is believing is a dangerous philosophy. We have to look deeper. We have to look at the gaps, because that is where the next ghost is already waiting. We have to start looking at what we can't see. The digital world is getting more transparent, but that just means there are more places for deadly ghosts to hide. Keep your eyes open even when there is nothing to see. Catch you in the next episode. Visit rushenwick.com for more. Also, don't forget to check out the links in the description. Thanks for listening.